Olá, pessoal, bem-vindos ao Breath Connection Podcast. Estou muito feliz de anunciar para vocês que este vai ser o primeiro episódio de uma série de entrevistas, podcasts que eu vou fazer com algumas pessoas, alguns especialistas em respiração e saúde que eu conheci ao longo dessa minha jornada com a respiração, com a Breath Connection. Então, o Nick vai ser o meu primeiro entrevistado em inglês. Algumas entrevistas eu vou fazer em inglês. Faz tempo até que eu não pratico meu inglês, vai ser uma forma, inclusive, de eu praticar um pouco mais. E algumas eu vou fazer em português. Então, os que forem em inglês, eu vou colocar legendas aqui para vocês. O Nick, Nick Hitch, ele é um PhD de ciências atmosféricas e também treinador de respiração, breath coach, que a gente chama. E ele descobriu a respiração alguns anos atrás, começou com o método Hoff, depois descobriu a Oxygen Advantage, onde ele teve realmente uma mudança muito significativa nessa saúde, porque ele foi diagnosticado com diabetes com 11 anos de idade e sofreu muito, né, com esse quadro, até descobrir então que com a respiração consciente, mudando a forma de respirar, respirando de forma mais lenta, profunda, utilizando o diafragma, utilizando o nariz, ele teve uma melhora muito significativa na sua saúde. Ele vai contar um pouquinho então da história dele aqui, para que a gente possa entender a relação da respiração consciente com o diabetes. Então, espero que vocês gostem dessa entrevista. Essa é a primeira de muitas que eu pretendo fazer, então. Então, nos vemos em breve aí no episódio com o Nick e em outros episódios que eu vou estar fazendo por aqui também. Até breve. Okay, welcome, Nick. We are starting our podcast about breath and breathing. Nick have a profile named Breathing for Diabetic, the Breathing Diabetic, right, Nick?
Yep.
So welcome, Nick. We're gonna talk a little bit about breath and diabetes. So please introduce yourself, Nick, and welcome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, so my name is Nick Heath. I'm a research scientist by training. That's like my academic background, but in atmospheric science to be specific, meteorology. But I got into breathing through personal health issues where I found that specific breathing could help with my diabetes. I've been a type 1 diabetic since I was 11. And I
11.
discovered, yeah,
Very
11
early.
years old, I got type 1, and that's the autoimmune version, where basically there's no cure as of now, and there's really no, it's something genetic, and then something triggers it where your body's own immune system starts attacking the beta cells in your pancreas, and you can't produce insulin anymore. And so I dealt with that, since I was a kid. So I kind of got used to it. But it was when I started doing some mouth taping and nasal breathing and slow breathing, and some breath holds when I was 30. Yeah, I was 30
30.
years old when I discovered the oxygen advantage, and it changed my life. So I went and I became an instructor, an advanced oxygen advantage instructor, and I've been studying breathing since. Like I've just been so obsessed with trying to understand how it works, how did it impact my blood sugars, how did it impact my mental health, like because that's a big part of it, right? Is you just feel so much better. And so I've just been trying to understand that, like, how does it work? And as a scientist background, I go at it kind of from both perspectives of like practical use and then also reading the papers and trying to understand the papers and make sense of them.
Your website, you have a lot of papers, right? You
Yeah,
like
yeah, I got, yeah,
to
lots
study
of
papers.
papers. Yeah, I
Yeah,
I read a lot.
very nice, very good. So you when you started with the breath, to study about the breath, you have it was 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's actually, let's see. Technically, I got started with Wim Hof in 2016, and then I
16.
got started with the Oxygen Advantage in late 2017. And became an
2017.
instructor March 2018 is when I became an Oxygen Advantage instructor.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
A little
Patrick
before
happened
me.
to be coming to the United States, so I flew across the country. I was so excited, it like changed my life. So I was like, I didn't really want to teach, I just wanted to learn it more, and I wanted to learn from Patrick.
For
So
yourself,
yeah,
for
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
And then you
exactly. Yeah,
started to teach, right? Now
yeah, I
you
did.
teach.
Yeah, still, yeah, I teach. Yeah, I do teach, but it was at the time, it was more like, I just want to be a nerd. I want to learn from Patrick and grow my knowledge. So yeah.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your story when you were a kid. So this diagnostic, uh, how it was for you? Was complicated? You have to deal with some kind of limitations. Can you tell us a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, with diabetes, there are certainly lots of limitations, but you know, you can overcome most of them. It's just a lot
Hmm.
of testing your blood sugar. Now they have continuous glucose monitors, which make things easier.
Hmm.
Taking insulin and just kind of being very diligent with preparation, knowing where extra sugar is and insulin and things you can get to when you need it. But when I was diagnosed at 11, yeah, I mean, I went through a pretty crazy period to that led up to my diagnosis where I got really, really sick. And then my blood sugars were like over 700, which is like near death essentially, or like at least coma. So very fortunate that like when I went into the hospital, obviously they recognized it immediately, got me insulin and went from there. But after that, I kind of, you know, as a kid, you don't want to know, like, you know, you just don't want to think about it. So it was like, I did what I had to do, but I didn't like take care of my body. Like my blood sugars fluctuated. I went ups and downs and I didn't really know it, but that was contributing to like, you know, all sorts of like emotional distress and things I hadn't even comprehended. And when I was when I started my master's degree, I was getting panic attacks. I was, I think, diagnosed with like generalized anxiety disorder. And it was all because of my blood sugars, probably, or a big component. Obviously, the stress of school was adding to it.
Hmm.
But, you know, when your blood sugars are always going up and down, it puts like a lot of stress on your body. So yeah, I definitely had gone through a lot with diabetes. And then so I found diet. I started changing how I eat. I started exercising more, and I think all of that kind of opened my mind to different approaches. And then so when Wim Hof came along in 2016, I became obsessed with that, and that opened my mind to the breath. It was like, oh, okay,
Right.
it's like I call it the gateway drug. Like Wim Hof like serves as everyone's gateway. Like you do it, you feel great, you do push-ups, you get in an ice bath, like you're like, okay, there's something to this breathing stuff. And that opened my eyes to the power of the breath. So then when Patrick came along at the right point in my life, it completely changed me because he was talking about, you know, the science of nasal breathing, the science of CO2, and all these things that started to like, oh, this makes sense. And then I had better control of my blood sugars and things like that. And so it made a lot of sense to me and inspired me to want to share it more. Yeah.
And you were doing the Wim Hof method every day, maybe?
Yeah.
Probably
For about a year straight, I did it
a year,
every day. Yeah. I
every
was
day.
like, so that's a thing, you know, I mean, this gets deeper quickly, but like, you know, with breathing and mindfulness and all these things you start to bring in with the breath, right? Because the breath is like just, there's so many ways you can use it. And like bringing in mindfulness, like I just start to realize like, oh, I'm like crazy, right? I have all, you know, I have like an obsessive compulsive, like I'm very obsessive. So like back
No,
then,
I know.
you
I
know,
think
it's like,
probably all of us, all the Brad coaches think something like this. Well, I'm obsessed, and other people don't understand, don't comprehend really deep like we when we start to do this. So, because if you read this one thing, when you start to practice and you see the changes, you
mm,
kind of obsessed for a little period, and then you understand that okay, bread is important, but it's not everything. You need
right.
to care about other things. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I got obsessed with Wim Hof because it was like that. It was like, oh, it changes everything, your mind, all these things. But yeah, so that's I
Energy.
was doing it for like yeah, a year, probably every morning for about a year, I would say
Wow.
almost to on the dot. Yeah.
Mhm. And you know some changes, um, not only on your mind, your energy, but in your clinical case, in your diabetes. You changed something.
Yeah, yeah. When I
It was good
started,
for your health.
when I moved to the Oxygen Advantage, I saw drastic improvements in my blood sugars.
But
Um,
with Wim Hof method, you didn't
with
notice.
with Wim, so it gets tricky because I don't. It wasn't as dramatic. It didn't hurt my diabetes health. Like I still stayed pretty good. I was eating well and things like that. So I was like, my blood sugars were always decent. So it was never like a to me, it was more the spiritual path of Wim Hof
Oh,
that I
great,
was,
great.
like I wasn't even thinking diabetes at all. It was just like, oh, I'm growing as a human.
You're
I'd gone
feeling
through
great,
things, yeah, like
great.
my sister had passed away from cancer, and that like I think that was like there's a lot of things I didn't recognize at the time, but looking back, I can say, oh, that was probably why Wim Hof resonated with me so much. Like he lost someone and he was just like,
Yeah,
I'm going to fix everything. So like it kind of, that might've been a big driver for me. But so at that time I was really focused on like the spirituality side of it and like the energy, like just I would do push-ups and feel great or sit in a cold shower. It was like a mental, it was
feeling.
all mind. It was just like I'm training my mind to be like rock solid. Um, but then when I switched to the Oxygen Advantage is when my blood sugars were so much better. And I thought, wait a minute, this is crazy. Then
Wow.
all these other things like, oh, I got to figure this out because this is incredible.
So, okay, great, great. Yes, because Wim Hof method brings us a little bit of the non-ordinary states, right? Like holotropic. But
Hmm.
holotropic is very deep. You stay a lot of time breathing, and the conscious connected breathing. Wim Hof, we got a small dose of this, right? You experience something different. Your body feel, I don't know, different in various states, and you can perceive something different. Your mind changed. It's very good. But once you discover the oxygen advantage, you started to notice different results in your health, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Diabetes,
definitely.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So with Wim's method, just like you said, right? It's like it's very powerful and like you start to see different states. I was like I'm kind of a nerd, so like I didn't experiment with any psychedelics or anything like that. So like for me, I was probably filling some void of like that I missed.
Right.
And so it was
Hmm.
really nice. But when I got to the Oxygen Advantage, my blood sugars were getting better. I was sleeping so good and I just had all this energy. Like I was just like, who am I? Like I just had so much energy because I had become a habitual mouth breather. Like it wasn't that Wim Hof doesn't say breathe through your mouth all the time, but
No.
I started doing that because I kind of like was like, okay, I need to everywhere I go, I need to be taking these big breaths and
Uh,
oxygenating my body. And so I was just destroying my health. I was just so I was draining my energy. And so at some point when I switched to the Oxygen Advantage, it was like nasal breathing, restoring CO2 levels. And like for me, it was like night and day. Like I went from like down here to like here overnight. Like the first night I taped my mouth, I thought, this is the best thing ever. I was so like I just and my blood sugars like 3 months later, my blood sugars were better, and I thought there's something to this. I need to start like googling it, and then Google Scholar, and then research papers, and then yeah, it kind of led me down a never ending rabbit hole.
yeah, that's the problem because there's some misunderstandings in some kind of breath, powerful breaths like Wim Hof and other stuff. That there's a lot of breathing techniques, right? But this kind of breathing techniques is good for a short period. We know, but for a period, maybe a lot of people got messed with this kind of thing and started to do this every time. I know a lot of people that do this, and I was lucky because since as soon as I discovered the Wim Hof method, I started to take cold showers every day, and the breathing, I used to do some days in a week, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but really soon I discovered other kind of schools, and I discovered Oxygen Advantage, and I started to study about the Oxygen Advantage method, Buteyko method, but I didn't start it right in this moment to study because we need time to study, to purchase the course and dedicate yourself to study about the breath and everything else and practice, and to make the Oxygen Advantage advanced structure, you need to do case studies and test. So you need to put a lot of dedication in this. So I wait on maybe 3 or 4 months, and once I started, it was game changing for me too, because I had a bad night. I used to sleep not so well, so it was game change for me. You started to taper your mouth
Oh
soon
yeah, yeah, for sure.
as
Yeah,
it's
the first night, I heard Patrick McEwen on a podcast, and that night, like as I was listening to him, I just kept driving. I went right by my house and went to the local pharmacy and got some tape. And I was like, I'm just
right.
gonna try it. I can't not try it. Like he made it sound so good, and so that was like the life changing, moment to sleep through the night, to wake up refreshed, and like, yeah, to have energy all day, to not have like a midday crash. It was just incredible to me, all from tape, just, a little piece of tape over my mouth. So, so yeah,
So
definitely.
easy, so cheap.
Yeah, so cheap,
And
so easy.
unfortunately, recently we had people, saying that it's dangerous. And here in Brazil, she's a comedian, and I was thinking, that's crazy because people want to listen a comedian but don't want to listen to the specialist. It's crazy. I was thinking about to make a video to make it clear for people why and when you can do this and the benefits. I'm preparing a video to explain this because I was the first one to bring Oxygen Advantage to Brazil. I was the first
Amazing.
instructor here, and then I get approached with Patrick and study a lot more and became a master instructor. So I train a lot of new instructors here. I think it's almost 60 right now. We have doctors, we have physiotherapists, yoga teachers, dentists, psychiatrists, and a lot of people in the area of health. So people are reporting to me a lot of changes in lives, and that's so important. And then when you see people telling, "Oh, that's dangerous," it's kind of, whoa. We're doing a lot of work to make people understand that the health is not so far. Probably people today are thinking, "This is not for me. I'm sick. I will be always like this," and that's not true. You are here to tell us. Was the same for me. I was having a bad sleep for years, reflux, gastric reflux, a lot of issues. And when I discovered the breath, my life changed completely. My energy, my sleep, my concentration. I was
Mm.
probably, if I was in the school in that time, if I go to the doctor, they say, you have ADHD. And, you know, there's a lot of misunderstanding about this. Sorry,
Oh, no problem.
forgot to put this on the side, but we cut this part
Oh,
after.
it doesn't matter.
So
So I'm
uh,
interested. So what did you start with mouth tape as well, or did you start with some of the breathing techniques and then work your way
I started
up?
with Wim Hof method. I discovered with Wim Hof method, started to take cold showers every day, and feel the benefits. But then I started to study about the breath, and I go through holotropic breathing, rebirthing, a lot of different techniques, and Oxygen Advantage. And when I got to the oxygen advantage, I discovered that there's a lot more things to study. And mouth taping wasn't the first things I done. I started to breath holding and slow breathing, the breathe light. And I didn't feel the that mouth taping was so necessary. So after a few months, I started to mouth tape, but I think just just changing my breath, I stopped mouth breathing at night. Was
Yeah, of
amazing
course. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
how much uh, if I stand more conscious about my breath during the day, I think our body changes during the night also. At least you have dysfunctional with tongue, uh, another other problems. But I think it was not my case. I was just unconscious of my breath. As soon as I changed my breath pattern, my breathing pattern, I changed my sleep totally. So
Amazing.
today, I used to take my mouth only when I'm very tired, or I don't know, I drink some wine or eat a lot of sugar or something I know that is very inflammatory, and probably I will need to overbreathe during the night. So in this case, I will open my mouth.
Nice.
Otherwise, it's not necessary. I used to wake up with refresh, and my mouth is not dry. But I recommend for a lot of people that I used to teach and attend as a therapist. So it's clear, it's totally clear for me. The changes is so it's huge. The changes are huge, but it's definitely not for everybody. You
Right.
know,
Yep.
there's some people that there's always with nose stuff, stuck. So if you taper mouth directly without make some changes in your breath pattern, maybe it's not so good for you. It's not gonna work for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like when you hear someone talk about it, right, you get excited and then you think, oh, that's probably what I'm missing. But some people it doesn't work, right? Like and other people don't need it. Like you made a really good observation, like that you're changing your daytime breathing, improved your nighttime breathing. And that's super important because you're changing we're changing our nervous systems. Like we're learning to regulate our nervous system. We're learning to downshift some of the stress or purposefully stress your body so that then you relax deeper. And that can be so beneficial. For me, it was like the opposite. It was like taping my mouth helped my daytime breathing a lot. And other people, it's like changing their daytime breathing helps their breathing during sleep. And so there's no one right way to do any of it, right? It's just kind of
Yes.
like what do you need? What is your specific circumstances? Like what issues are you facing? Because just because you hear it, someone else had success doesn't mean it'll work for you. So you definitely got to be very diligent about like where am I at in my life, and what do
Yeah.
I need?
Perfect. We're all different, right? And
Yeah.
I used to say people, okay, if you taper mouth straight in the first moment, it's kind of a pill, because you are not doing your job. We need to do our jobs, relearn how to breathe deeply and breathe through our nose, and just taper them out without changing the breathing pattern. Maybe it's kind of okay, give me this and I will solve my problem. But you need to learn about your breath. Not It's not just do something because it's better for you. Okay, it's gonna work. Probably there's some studies, right? That's 65% of people who take the mount will have benefits
Hmm.
e- without breath training. Imagine with breath training,
Right.
probably almost 100% will people will have changes, can improve the sleep quality. So Nick, tell us a little bit about the process of diabetes and how change our breath will help with the diabetes, please.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll kind of stick with like, a couple easy ways to understand it. Cause with diabetes, there's kind of a lot of things going on. There's so many issues. When your blood sugar goes up, it can increase oxidative stress. It can cause inflammation. And then at the same time, it's causing a lot of emotional distress because of these factors, right? Like our body and mind are one, right? They're connected. We know that all by now, but
Mhm.
sometimes it gets lost. So when you are always under this constant state of both physiological and mental stress, it just wreaks havoc on your life, and it causes lots of complications with blood circulation, with autonomic nervous system dysfunction, high blood pressure, heart problems, and the list basically goes on and on and on, because it all comes back to blood sugar fluctuations. And then that causes like high oxidative stress and inflammation, which then wreak havoc on everything else. So there's kind of like a lot of things going on. And at the same time, this one you'll appreciate. One of the key drivers of all of the complications with diabetes is tissue hypoxia. So we don't get as much oxygen at the cellular level, and we know that's like, that's life, right? Oxygen is life. It's energy. It's life. We need oxygen. And so there are groups of researchers out there who think if we could reverse oxygen or tissue hypoxia in people with diabetes, we could potentially, alleviate lots of the complications, like a lot of the downstream negative effects. So that's a lot, right? There's so many things going on. So where does the breath come in? Well, the breath is like the alleviator of all of those things, right? So like
Mhm.
if you breathe properly, you're going to increase oxygenation, both in the blood and in the tissues, specifically if you're not over breathing. And so when you learn these light breathing, these slow breathing techniques, you're learning to properly oxygenate, or just even if you don't do anything but breathe through your nose, right? You're going to increase oxygenation big time. And so will it cure you? No, of course not, right? But it will help. It just contributes, a little step in the right direction. And so you get the oxygen side. Then when you bring in things like the deliberate slow breathing, this is going to be a potent stimulator of the vagus nerve, right? Of the parasympathetic nervous system. And you know all this, but some of your listeners might not,
No,
right?
no,
Or,
please tell us because it's good to hear from other people because my audience, people that follow me, probably listen to me to talk a lot about this, about
okay.
slow breathing, nose breathing, nitric oxide. But everybody explains in different ways, and
Right.
probably
Yeah.
the way you explain the things you bring and you will connect probably will make sense for in different ways for different people.
All
So
right.
please
All right. All
tell
right.
us, teach us, please, Nick.
Okay, all right. Well, so we got that part, the relaxation response, right? We're gonna upregulate the parasympathetic nervous system. And basically any study on the planet of people with diabetes, they look at their nervous system health, and it's deteriorated. It's worse
Mm.
than a non-diabetic. And they measure this through things like heart rate variability or through baroreflex sensitivity. And so we come in at a lower baseline. We're under chronic stress. Our nervous system's dysregulated. We're not getting enough oxygen at the cellular level. And then you bring in some slow breathing, and that's going to, balance out your nervous system. It's going to, you know, reduce blood pressure, which is going to be good for the heart. It's going to
Mhm.
maximize heart rate variability, which is good for your heart. And so it does all of these little things that contribute in its own way to improving diabetes. So you get the tissue hypoxia, the nervous system health, the heart health, and then on top of all that, the emotional side of things. And
Mhm.
I mean, we could talk about that for an hour, but it's like there's two ways. Like, so it relaxes you, right? So like if you do some slow breathing every morning, like I try to do at least 15 minutes, usually 20 minutes of some sort of like mindfulness and slow breathing. And it chills you out, and that's going to set the day better to handle these emotional distressors, right? All of the brain changes that go on, all of the nervous system changes. And so that will like change your life in itself, but there's like this unavoidable aspect of breathing where if you become really interested in breath work, let's say, or breathing, you still start to develop mindfulness. Like you become more attuned to your body, you become more attuned to the things around you. And with that, that's like the superpower to everything, is like you start to notice like, oh, my blood sugars aren't working because of this. Oh, I need to make this change. You become mindful of your health. Like you realize like things that are hurting your body, and you start to notice like, oh, like I mentioned earlier, like I'm obsessive. I learned that through observing the breath. Like I learned how crazy I am, and it helps me mitigate that, right? It helps me like take steps to offset that. And with diabetes specifically, being mindful of your diabetes can be life-changing, because you start to notice what types of foods you should eat. You remember to take insulin on time. Sometimes we forget our insulin, or we don't take it at the right time. And that's normal. It still happens to me, but I'm way more mindful of it, and I can adjust quickly. Or let's say my blood sugar goes up because I mess up and I feel awful. Old me would have spiraled. I would have been, oh, this sucks. Oh, life, I'm just, my blood sugar's all this. But now I can be mindful and say, okay, I made a mistake. Let me try to do my best to fix it. That's all I can do. I let go of things, And so it's really like layers. You can look at it physiologically, and you can talk all about the health, and you can get all sciencey and nerdy, or you can go like the mindful emotional regulation route, and both of them are going to be just as relevant. And so if someone's listening to this and they have diabetes, all of this, they'll understand what I'm saying. But it's like you kind of pick which side you care about and just focus on that, but you get both. So if you do the breathing, you get all those nice benefits of CO2, of nervous system, heart rate variability. And at the same time, you're building mindfulness, which is going to help with all the emotional regulation and all that. So it's kind of this beautiful synchronicity with breathing, where you get all of these benefits, and however you want to cut the cake, right? Slice the pie or whatever, you're getting them all, but it's all packaged in the breath. Sorry, I
Great,
just
great.
ranted. I get excited.
No, 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 don't worry. Please talk. And probably the diaphragmatic breathing helps with insulin resistance, right?
Yeah, so there is some research showing that the deep, slow breathing, diaphragmatic breathing can help with insulin sensitivity. It's not like,
Sensitivity.
yeah, or resistance, however you want to frame it, but
Okay.
it's the exact mechanism isn't clear. Like, what is it doing?
It's kind of new, right, Nick? Probably a few years ago, nobody cares about bread, and these things are rising up again because yogis or our ancestors talk a lot about bread, but we kind of forget, as James Nestor explained in the bread, we kind of forget bread is kind of thing that goes and go back, and everybody talks about and then forget again. So probably there's no much time that people are caring about bread, right?
Yeah, and it's sad, but luckily, I mean, it is growing quite a bit. So like you do
Yeah,
see
right now it's growing a
these
lot.
studies, yeah, like and even in the research field, like they're you see
Yeah.
papers published in Nature, like really prestigious journals, talking about breathing for mental health and stress
Mhm.
reduction. And so when with but yeah, with so like with diabetes, I've probably read 90% of the papers published on breathing and diabetes. I try to read them all,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's just not a big sample. It's not like I can't, with the insulin sensitivity, like there's a couple studies showing some really interesting things, but it's not clear cut what's going on. But it does seem to help when you activate that parasympathetic nervous system, you chill
Mhm.
out. It seems
Makes
to
sense.
improve your insulin sensitivity.
Yeah,
And that
probably
helps.
if we think a little bit, let's think. If we need to be ready to run or to fight, you need more sugar in the blood, right?
Right.
Because you need energy
That's
and
right.
oxygen, energy, and glucose. So probably it makes sense when you relax. our body changes the behavior, right? So heart rate variability, everything changes when we relax. So the problem, I think, it's people don't know how to relax. People forget how to relax. We have so many distractions that we don't know how to relax anymore. So I think the most important is to know how to stress, because stress is important. It is
Of
important,
course. Of course.
but we need to go through stress and go back to the homeostasis. And that's the problem. Probably people forget to go back. Even in the gym, people go to the gym, they are stressed in the work, and they go to the gym, stressed for a lot, maybe 1 hour, and go out from the gym and doing a lot of things. That's why in yoga we have the last position. You lay down. I forgot maybe English is the same name.
Shavasana?
Shavasana. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. In Portuguese, it's Shavasana.
Okay.
So yeah, because it's the name is the same, but I don't remember if in English you use the same name. Okay, so you need to relax after you stress yourself. And people forget this. People go out from the gym and talking, laughing, wa- uh, attending calls and making calls and watching the Instagram. So they don't have enough time to bring back your body to homeostasis. And that's chronic because people are living like this, always stressed. And that I think that's the problem. The kind of issue or disease you're gonna have, it depends of other habits you have. But I think breathing is in the core, in the core, in the center. The
Yeah,
breath
of
is in the
course.
center. Other problems will happen, depends on your lifestyle.
Yeah. And yeah, you nailed it, because there's so many. So and I try to, yeah, be realistic about that. Like, so if you have diabetes, let's say, and you start doing a breathing practice, it's going to be helpful, right? I mentioned all these different things. I said 100 different things it could help with, but like, yeah, if you're chronically stressing yourself out and using, doing things that are harmful to your health on the side, it's not going to fix all those. Like, you can't just like breathe your way out of all the problems. Like, now it may be the catalyst, right? For me, like a catalyst to make you realize, like, oh, maybe I should do this differently. Maybe I should handle this emotional stressor differently. So it can definitely serve as that seed so that other great habits grow out of it. But like you just said, like, if you're chronically stressed and you're just always stressing yourself out and you're looking just constantly at things that bring you stress, the news or whatever it might be, it's like there's no amount of breathing that can fix us from that. So there's definitely like a lifestyle component. But what's interesting is that most people, when they're ready for breathing, right, when they discover the breath and breath work, whatever you want to call it, like, they're at a state where they're ready to make some of those changes. I feel like it's kind of like it's like to be interested in something as weird as breathing. It's like right now, pretty soon it'll be normal, but uh you almost have to be at a point where you're ready to make some pretty significant changes. So I think a lot of it comes hand in hand with it.
Yeah, I think some of my friends used to think I was about to get crazy a few years ago, but now I think the bread is coming. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of new papers, a lot of studies, and a lot of doctors talking about. So I think in a few years they will say, "Oh, Julian was not so crazy as we thought before." Because when I started with this breath thing, I think most people that used to know me said, "Oh, you are different. What's happening?" But not in the first moment. I don't think it was in a good way, in a good side. Was what's happening? Because I started to talk about breath and sound healing. I work with sound healing,
Mm.
and sound healing is so special because it acts in our nervous system directly, straight, and you cannot handle with this. And you can see changes in other uh, animals, behavior, and dogs, horses, every kind of animal. If you play some instrument, some music around them, they will relax. So it's not mental. You're not think, oh, I like this music. It's acting in your body, in your nervous system.
Mm.
So it was so different. I changed completely because I was an entrepreneur for 17 years. So I had a company, and technology company, and so what was a big change in my life because I noticed the difference in on myself and people around me, people who cares and listen was what I was talking about, and I noticed a lot of changes. So I think it's growing. The breathwork is growing around the world, especially here in Brazil. We are kind of late, but it's growing. It's growing.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
it's very interesting to talk with people from other countries. When I went in Patrick's house last year in Ireland, it was amazing to change experience with a lot of different instructors. So it was amazing because a lot of different opinions and life experience was amazing. And I'm every day more convinced that Brett can change our lives, can change. As we mentioned, there's not everything you need to care about your food, sleep
Mhm.
quality, but breath in some point is connected with everything
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
in the way we feel the food, the pleasure, the pain. Completely, I used to do ice bath, and in my workshops I do ice bath, and the way you breathe changed your perception of pain completely. So I think in the case of diabetes, it's the same because I think all the diseases kind of the same. Um, it begins with a body who cannot regulate, right? It's out of homeostasis, and the disease will come depends of the other habits. So, Nick, tell us a little bit about a little bit more about your story or about the way you think we can help other people with the breath and make people more conscious about the importance of breathing.
Sure. I want to touch on one thing you said because it's real important, I think, and I just loved it. Was like when you went to Patrick's and you met people with different perspectives. And I think that's what's so neat about the breath. And I know it'll go like I know it's just how human nature works that we pick camps and all these different things. But like that's what's really to me just the best part is like Buddhist people focus on the breath. You can go to like a rebirthing class and they're focused on the breath. You can go to a sports clinic and they're now talking about the breath. You can go anywhere, right? And the breath can be incorporated in whatever way is right for you. So like that is where I think like the power lies in like helping people understand that power that they don't have to do oxygen advantage. They don't have to do Wim Hof. They don't have they pick whatever it makes sense to you. Like if you just want to focus on it and just watch your breath and go for spiritual enlightenment, like that's beautiful. Like go for it. Like there's just it's endless how many different ways the breath can be framed, both literally and metaphorically as a stepping stone toward a goal, right? Toward living a happier life, being joyful, laughing more, enjoying things. Like the breath is incorporated in all that. So like I think that's so powerful. And I think most people like you and I, and as you get really deep into the breathing, you start to realize like it's amazing how many different people look at it in different ways and how different viewpoints can be because it's like it's so eye-opening to see these different perspectives. And like you said, like just wow, like it's incredible, right? That all these people are using breathing in a slightly different way, but they're getting massive results. They feel better. And that's what really matters. So I just wanted to emphasize that. And it kind of goes to what the question you asked, like, how can we get this out there? How can we help more people? Right. It's like helping them understand that they can use it. Like it's not just for Buddhist monks. It's not just
Mhm.
for high performing athletes. It's not just for people with disease. It's, there's a way to incorporate it into your life that works for you, and there's always a way it can help you live better. Like, that's what it comes down to, is like, no matter what you're doing in life, like, there's a way you could use breathing to make it better. And that's what's pretty neat about it. So, I mean, from like a Western perspective, the greatest thing is that there's now science. Like, the farther, I'm a nerd, right? I am a scientist by training, so I read papers, but like, the more I learn, the less I care. I'm like, the science doesn't matter. Like, we know there's been thousands of years of practice now of people using these techniques. They clearly work, but it is important, because when it goes under the scrutiny of scientific study and it still works, right? Even with all the craziness of how studies are designed and all the extra variables and all these things, that we still see meaningful improvements when you use breathing. So it's like, that probably is our best gateway to helping people, like showing them these studies, showing them, a significant reduction in stress, a significant improvement in heart rate variability, a significant lowering of blood pressure. And there's science behind all of it now. So it's like, it backs up all these ancient claims and it gives validity, and hopefully that will open up more people up to it, is my hope.
Yeah, and make some fun sometimes. That's why Wim Hof got a lot of people, right? Because it's kind of it's you have fun, you feel different. But there's a lot of people participating on my workshops, telling me that when we do the slow breathing, breathe light, they feel um sensations and perceptions almost like Wim Hof, because I think is if you got 100 people and you ask for the 100 people to overbreathe, to hyperventilate, everybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably everybody can do it, but hold your breath is different. It's more challenging, right? It's not for everyone. We can see this on Bolt's car. There's people that can hold their breath for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. It's a very short period, and it is okay. When in the first time, if your Bolt's car is 10, 8, okay. But if you keep doing it, it's gonna rise up for sure. But you need to be persistent, right? You need to do your job. That's why overbreathing, hyperventilation, it's easy. If you think it's easy, everybody can do. But hold your breath needs need your concentration, need to need that you overcome some traumas, because probably when you go deep in the breath hold and you try to extend this, probably you're gonna access a lot of traumas, a lot of fears, fear of dying, fear of a lot of probably past traumas. Let's think. Maybe you are playing some game and you hit other person and you hit right here. I remember a lot of times that happening with me, and you cannot breathe and you stay a little. For sure, it keeps a little bit of trauma, because you think in that moment that you're gonna die.
Mm.
I cannot breathe, and it's very complicated. So probably our body registered that as a trauma, a little trauma. So probably all of us pass through situations like this, or in the water when you cannot, and I don't know, in the ocean you got a wave and you cannot breathe, and you maybe drink some water accidentally. So we had a lot of fears about our breath, right? I don't know if it makes sense for you, but that's why when you say hold your breath, it's complicated. Probably you need to be patient to the situation. That's why I don't say in my Instagram or here on YouTube, uh, it's not for everybody. Hey,
Mm.
hold your breath. Because if you have panic disorder or something like this, in the first moment can be the opposite. You can be very stressed during some kind of breath holding. But as soon as you understand the process and you keep doing it, for sure you're gonna have benefits, right?
Yeah, and it's a really good point. Like the breath holds, I don't really talk about breath holds anymore. I used to be really into them, but it's like, yeah, it has such a different response for each person, and there are
Mhm.
conditions where it's unsafe. There's times when it's just not healthy. So I don't talk about them as much, but you mentioned like such a really important point about them. It's that it's such a fear, right? We all have, like you mentioned, getting the air knocked out of you or getting held under at the beach, and you get a little water, and it's like when you adapt to that, when you learn to hold your breath in short periods in a controlled environment with an instructor, and you're just learning to hold it, and you're learning to face that. Like you get to that point and then you push past it just a little bit, and then you let go, and then it teaches you in life, right? How to handle stress better,
Mhm.
because if you can hold your breath and get past that breaking point, yeah, I mean, it's like it gives you a lot of stress resilience. And so there's a lot of ways in which breath holds can be beneficial. But you just have to do them very safely, right? Every person needs to work with an instructor and make sure they're healthy enough and all those things before you try any intense breath hold practices. But
In
yeah.
which cases you think it's not healthy? Can you
So,
say for?
the biggest one would be like heart conditions, anything with a heart condition, because that breath hold is going to activate the sympathetic nervous system, might cause some sort of heart rate increase, AFib. There's, each person's different. So if you have like high blood pressure or any kind of cardiovascular issue, that would be like, you need to work with someone to make sure it's safe. Um, Other ones, and here's the crazy part, right? Is sometimes they can be really helpful for these same conditions. But they just have to be done really carefully. And like there's certain thresholds you can't cross. And so it's kind of like the dosage is really important. And so anytime it's like a heart condition or a lung condition where you don't get enough CO2 and O2 exchange, like you just want to be very careful. And then, like you mentioned, like psychiatric disorders, you, you don't want to put someone under that stress of feeling like they can't breathe, because that will mimic a panic attack for them. And like I mentioned earlier at the very beginning, I used to have panic attacks, and it's like I would never wish that on anyone. So it's you wouldn't want to, you would want to come the other way, and like relaxation and deep relaxation and things like that. So that's just a couple. There's probably a lot more conditions where breath holds aren't safe, but those are just a few of the obvious ones.
And for diabetes, it is okay to make breath holds.
It depends. So diabetes is an interesting one. So it is okay. There's no like immediate contraindication, but there are times like it's very blood sugar dependent. So some people, when they hold their breath, their blood sugar drops really quickly, and that can be unsafe.
Mhm.
Other people, the stress of it causes their blood sugar to go up. What you were talking about earlier, like release the sugar because it's a stressor, so it's getting your body ready. And so it's really just being careful, making sure blood sugars are in range, having a snack nearby, having everything you need, kind of
Mhm.
basic stuff that most people with diabetes do, but you just don't want to risk it. And then the flip side of that is people with diabetes often have heart issues. They have cardiovascular, high blood pressure. And so you just got to be careful that you don't have any of those issues too. So for me, I always start with the slow stuff, slow breathing, gentle
Mhm.
breathing, nasal breathing, because there's basically no negative effects. Like,
The most recommended is
yeah,
slow breathing, right?
just a slow, simple, slow breathing, because there's no danger. There's no harmful effects. And then, with time, build into the more intense stuff. Try out the breath holds if you want, or
Maybe
there's
step by
in
step, right?
yep,
Maybe
yep.
start with 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, and
Mhm.
try to overcome this every day, improve this a little bit by no step by step, right? Start slowly and go That's a good option, you think?
Yeah, that's how I would recommend it. And
Yes.
to me, breath holds are like icing on the cake. You know, you don't have to do them. You can get lots of benefits with just nasal breathing and slow breathing, especially for diseases like for people with diabetes or anything. Like you can just do anything to regulate your nervous system is going to be really helpful. But once you get to a certain state and you want to keep going, right? There's always this human nature to like, I need to go another step. I need to see the next
Yeah.
thing. So at that point, then it's like, yeah, try them out and see if they work for you. And but just do it safely. You know, do it very
Yeah.
safely.
I used to say to people, sometimes people ask me, which one is the best breathing technique? There's a lot of this kind of questions. And I used to say, well, I used to teach that you need to learn about breathing, not got this breathing technique and say, oh, this is it's going to help me. But why? Why is going to help you? Because, we know how to deal with our phones and computers, but we don't know how to deal with our body. So I think everybody needs to know a little bit more about the way our body works, and especially the breathing, because it's the most important, the thing that we cannot stay, maybe a few minutes without. We can go, I don't know, maybe 3, 5 minutes in the best cases, but in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, we are already very uncomfortable. So if we can deal with the breath and learn how to breathe, learn why when you breathe slowly on exhale, you get more relaxed. Why? Why this is happening? If people try to go and ask these questions, you're gonna learn, and when you notice, you're gonna know a lot about breathing. And if you know a lot about breathing, you know a lot about yourself, a lot about your body, a lot about your mind, right? And how to deal with stress. That's why I don't used to say people use this technique is the best one. No, you need to learn about breathing. So I teach breathing,
Yeah.
not only techniques. That's the most important for people who is watching us. Try to understand more about breath, and when you understand a little bit more about breath, you're gonna see that you don't need one technique, or there's no one best technique. Probably we can say that um, the 5 inhale and 5 exhale is one of the best ones, because improve our heart rate variability and regulates your nervous system. Okay, it's one of the best, but probably you like to do it with music or walking. You can do a lot of different things to make it interesting, because if you not make it interesting, it boring, you're not gonna do it. I always say to my uh, clients, or people who come to learn about breath, you need to make it interesting. Otherwise, you're gonna quit, because it's kind of boring. Oh, breathe in for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5 seconds. If you stay a little bit in this case, you're gonna be boring and you're gonna quit. That's the problem. Uh, at least you try to go deeper on meditation. And meditation can be music, can be go to the nature, watch the nature, but paying attention on your breath. So that's why I think you can make it interesting.
Beautifully said. I love that. I mean, nailed it on the head. Enjoyment, right? You got to have enjoyment with your practice if you want it to stick. So
Yeah.
interesting, make it fun, find things that, the best breathing practice. Let's see, it's the one you'll do, right? It's like the one you enjoy. Like that's the best one. So I love what everything you just said was beautiful. So perfect.
Yeah. That's why it's so good to change, to talk about this and make some podcasts. I think I'm gonna do more podcasts with other master instructors and people from other countries, other different opinions, different areas, because some we used to make connections to our daily basis, right? So if I work with as a therapist, I see things on a therapist way. People who
Mm-hmm.
works with sports, they used to think about the sports in the first time, but most important is connect everything. That's why I create the breath connection, because we need to connect each other and change experiences, and that's why I create breath connection. And the breath is our connection with our soul, right? And body, mind. Our ancestors used to say that for us, that the breathing is the connection between body, mind, and soul. So we need to use this and understand a little bit more. So
Amazing.
Nick, what else you can talk about? Maybe our heart rate variability. You can teach us a little bit about this.
Sure, we could chat about that for a minute. So heart rate variability. Let's see where to start. There's so many options. So it's basically the beat to beat difference in heart rate, and it's something the time interval between each heartbeat, and it's kind of this general marker of your cardiovascular and autonomic nervous system health. And so it serves as this kind of global marker of how you're doing, right? How your nervous system's doing. Usually higher is better, but there's always exceptions. And this is like kind of when they measure you at baseline, just like you're sitting there, they just measure your heart rate variability. And then they do all these like correlation studies where high heart rate variability is associated with better health, better this, better that. And lower heart rate variability is usually associated with chronic disease like diabetes or different types of nervous system dysregulation or mental health conditions. And so where breathing comes in is that breathing gives us basically a direct remote control to our heart rate. Each breath we take changes our heart rate slightly. So this is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. And so as you inhale, your heart rate, the speed increases a little bit, so your heart rate goes up. And as you exhale, it goes back down. And so essentially, when we practice breathing techniques, we can come up with ways to exaggerate this process so that your heart rate goes up more during inhalation and it goes down more during exhalation. And so we're maximizing the peak and the trough of your heart rate with each breath. And that is helping to increase heart rate variability. And it's basically giving your nervous system like a little workout, but it's relaxing it, like you're learning to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system more. And so when you breathe at about what you said, about 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out, you're basically let's think of a good analogy. Like the best analogy I can think of is with surfing. Since you've mentioned the ocean, if people have ever gone to the beach and you've seen when it's windy, the waves are breaking all over. There's no coherence to them at all. There's all these different signals, right? We have swell coming from this way, a wave coming from this direction, and it's all messed up. That's kind of like what our bodies are doing. Like we have all these different things. We're breathing at a different rate. We have these baroreflex sensitivity, these baroreceptors, that are sending messages to our brain that are getting transmitted to our heart. Our brain is sending its own messages through all sorts of different networks. But when you slow down the breath, it's almost like when the wind turns offshore at the beach and it's nice and calm and you see the swells coming in and these nice even waves breaking, and that surfers love. I'm a surfer, so it's like the best thing. And
Good
so it's kind
analogy.
of the same thing. It's like the wind comes into, the wind changes and it hits it just right to clean everything up. And so when we change our internal wind and we breathe slower and peacefully at about 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out, it synchronizes some of these signals so that they're nice and clean. And then what it looks like is when you inhale, your heart rate goes way up. And then when you exhale, your heart rate goes way down. And it maximizes these peaks and troughs, just like waves in an ocean. And this is where like all the benefits come, because it's like relaxing, it's training your nervous system, and it's basically with time can help increase your heart rate variability even when you're not doing the breathing techniques. So it's kind of a really fascinating way to improve heart rate variability. And then that in turn is related to lots of different benefits.
So it's kind of reprogrammation, something like this. You can make a new norm or new pattern, right? When you
Yeah,
do
with
it
time. Yeah,
with
with time.
time.
So
Yeah.
there was one big, this one gets a little more challenging to tease out, but there was one big study. It was like an analysis of tons of studies, and they had 223 different studies they looked at with breathing and heart rate variability. And what they found is that during the slow breathing, the heart rate variability goes way up, like it goes up, and that's to be expected because of what we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Then they showed right afterward, it generally stays up a little bit, and then even months after, like when they're just resting, it's up higher if they practice continuously. So it's not like massive changes, but they are statistically significant increases in heart rate variability. So exactly what you said, like reprogramming your nervous system toward a slightly healthier state.
Perfect. That's so important because otherwise, as we mentioned before, it's all pills. You know, you have pills. Okay, please, I need this. I need this. Okay, but we need to be patient. That's the breath teaches to be patient, right? Because you don't have the benefits from, at least with mouth tape. With mouth tape, you have the benefits in one night. When you wake up,
Sometimes, yeah.
sometimes. But in other cases, you need to be persistent. You need to do it every day. So that's important to make it clear for people. I used to say that a ton of I don't know how to spell this in English, but it's like you can have one experience, you know. This is not reprogramming your mind and your nervous system. Even if it was a great experience, a non-ordinary experience, it can heal some very profound, some trauma. It can be beneficial for sure, but everyday breathing is the most important because it is the way you face the situations every day. And we have a lot of things to deal every day, probably. Most of us have some deals. Even, oh, my tire, my I need to do a lot of things. We need to deal with things every day. So if you can breathe consciously every day and make it more conscious, the changes will come for sure. But we need to be patient.
Patience, yes. You can't,
Yeah.
like with the slow breathing, you can feel things pretty quickly. Like you feel calm, couple minutes even, you feel relaxed. So you do get a little bit of that emotional benefit or relaxation response. But yeah, you really need the persistence, the consistency, the diligence to see like noticeable changes in your personality, like just who you become, right? Like you become a whole new person because your nervous system comes down a level or two. And so, yeah, very important.
I notice a big difference in my way of thinking
Yeah, me too.
because in the past I used to react a lot more. Even with in the transit when a car crossed in my front, it was, oh, this guy didn't see me. It was internet, even if I didn't say anything for people around me, but internally I was fighting. I was in fight or flight for sure. And now I can be very calm and say, okay, maybe the guy didn't see me. Different,
Yeah.
it is other point of view is can be, I can do this. It can happen with me. So why I will be so upset or so angry with other people? I'm a human. I can make some mistakes also. But if your mind is in this state of fight or flight response, you have not so much empathy, right? Stephen Porges explained this in the polyvagal theory, right?
Mhm.
That we change our ears, what we can hear in when we are in fight or flight states. We didn't hear the human voices so well. because we are our body are looking for high frequencies like a siren. This is the yeah, our body is
Yeah.
looking for this kind of sounds, not for human voices, because if we are in fight or flight, we're not so care about each other. We are in the alert state, right? So that's
Yeah.
why it is important. If you breathe slowly, your brain waves change, everything changes in our body work, the way our body works, right?
Yeah, and it's like you exactly what you just said. You notice, like, if you, it's easy to notice, like, acutely, like, let's say you did 10 minutes of slow breathing, you walk out and nature looks prettier, right? The trees look nicer, the people sound nicer, uh but then that wears off with time, right? And then you go throughout your day, people are yelling, and so but like if you do it every day, you start to make that your new baseline. That, and then, like what you were saying, someone cuts you off, or someone like is just doing something that's kind of rude or something, and you see it, you say, oh, I used to do that, or maybe I do that sometimes, like, no big deal, like, I'm not going to get mad because yeah, the empathy, just like, and it's hard to explain. It's so intangible. It's like these indirect benefits that could go on forever. It's like just being in the grocery store and waiting in line, and you're content. Like, it's okay. Like, things are fine,
Yeah.
and so it's definitely one of the best parts of it is like who, with practice, changing who you become. It's so critical.
Yeah, when you are present, right? I used to I like the book The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. Every time you can enjoy the moment and make adaptations, because in the past I used to travel with my car, and I used to I'm not telling I'm run because I respect the limit, but I was always on hurry, you know.
Mm.
And now I used to go slowly and go to the right, and okay, go. I'm
Yeah.
listening to my podcast. I'm listening to some music, quality music. I'm okay. I'm not in a hurry, and that makes a lot of difference, because probably I was, you know, waste my time, because I was always waiting to when I get there. But now I can hear some music. I can enjoy my time by myself, you know. That changes a lot for me. I was very anxious in the past. You know, I had a company, a lot of things, a lot of issues. I was always thinking in the next step. I was not I was not present for sure. Now I it's very clear for me. I was not present.
Mm.
I was not there. Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah. Nick, okay, I think we can we explain a lot of about bread and diabetes. I think we're done. I'm very happy to have this conversation with you. I'm
Me
sure that
too.
my audience will enjoy our conversation. I will put some legends, and as soon as I post in YouTube, I will tell you. And thank you so much for being here, for for tell you about your story, about your knowledge, and was a very nice talk. Thank you so much, and we keep in touch. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.